The Outer Side is proudly supported by Ty Gear. Head to www.tygear.com to explore the wide range of high-quality camping essentials, including guy ropes, screw-in tent pegs, tie-downs, and heaps more. Ty Gear. Adventure secured. Dog and Gun Coffee. Check out www.dogandguncoffee.com to grab yourself some bloody good coffee ready for adventure. G'day and welcome to The Outer Side. I'm Tony, and in this episode I'm joined by Ty Fenwick. Ty's grown up riding dirt bikes, he's built some sick four-wheel drives, done a lot of touring around Australia, and he's also a content creator. Ty, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Before we get started, we're going to do the Fast Five. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you're going to answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
What is your dream car?
Nismo R35 GTR.
Ooh. They just stopped taking orders for them last week, I saw.
Crush my heart.
Well, you can still buy one. Now you just have to compete with the US in terms of used car prices, which is always fun.
Exactly.
What is the weirdest thing you've ever Googled?
Oh, probably something medical.
A bit of Dr. Google. Yeah. That's a slippery slope because in my experience, everything just ends with cancer, like no matter what.
Yeah, it's bad. No, it's bad no matter what you do. But yeah, probably something medical.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
What is your least favourite food?
Oh, least favourite food. Olives.
Really?
Yeah. Can't do olives.
Interesting. You wouldn't survive long in my house. What is the best movie of all time?
Fast and Furious, the original first one.
Sick. Yeah, before they started like shooting cars into space and getting all weird.
Just missions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that first one was pretty sick.
Yep.
And what would you eat for your last meal?
Shabu shabu.
Interesting.
Japanese.
I like it.
Yep.
No olives needed.
No olives. Can't do olives. I don't know what it is. It just the saltiness to them or the texture. I just can't do it. One of my best mates, he can't do beets.
Really?
Can't eat beets.
It's so funny, eh? You just get this like one thing. For me, it's like bananas. It's not even the taste of a banana, but the smell of a banana sends me right off.
Really?
Yeah, I can't handle it. So like, a banana is bad, but a banana flavored something is way worse. So like, banana bread is the worst smell I can possibly imagine, and everyone loves it.
Lollies, banana lollies.
Disgusting. Anyway, before we get too deep into my hatred of bananas, let's talk about you. So. You mentioned before we started filming that dirt bikes was basically your childhood, so you grew up riding bikes?
Yeah, pretty much. That's all we lived and breathed was dirt bikes. Pretty much from there when I was like 2.5, riding pee-wees around. Yep, that was just every day and just riding dirt bikes every single day. Me and my brother growing up together, and then that progressed into. My dad's always been into earth moving and things like that, so I had machines around everywhere, and me on the sly. Getting in machines and just building a little jump and then going putting the machine back and then but every single day of my life's been dirt bikes. So,
yeah, true.
Yeah.
So did you, like obviously you were doing it recreationally, did you end up racing and doing all that sort of stuff when you were a youngster?
Yep, raced from racing on pee-wees up through 85s into 125s, 250s, and then as I kind of got older, got like sort of 18, started just it kind of went downhill from there, going out and getting into cars, and then just dirt bikes was still a big part of my life, but not as mainly focused. But yeah, definitely racing was a big focus. My family had a clothing company where we made motocross gear and casual clothing and stuff back then.
Yeah, true.
And this is probably 20 years ago now. So, but yeah, definitely motocross focused family was all we lived and breathed. So.
And 20 years ago, we would have been like right in the middle of like Crusty Demons and all that jazz, like which I've never been a dirt bike rider, but I still watched all that because it was a spectacle, right?
Yeah, that was it. Me and my mates, like especially going up in high school, they'd all come over on the weekends and they'd all drop their bikes off on Friday afternoon, or they'd ride from their place to my place, and then we'd just like spend the nights, whether it's Friday night, we'd order pizza and then we'd all sit around watching Krusty Demons or Travis Pastrana, Nitro Circus. That was literally every single weekend of my life. And then we'd just like, they built a jump doing this, let's go and build that down the back with the machinery. And then when we were down there building sort of ladder rails and stuff for BMXs and then building dirt jumps and just, it was all, everything to do with two wheels when I was growing up. That was all I lived and breathed. So
that's pretty cool. And you ended up taking that into a career in some respects, right?
Yeah, and that was a total curveball of kind of just I wasn't expecting to do it. I always wanted to do it, was to build tracks for a living. I remember being a kid and sitting in, I forget what the stadium was called back then, but I think it's Kudos at the moment in Sydney, and being a kid, being like 8 or 9 and sitting there and watching the Bobcats go around on the track and watching them do wheel stands and all the rest of it. And funny enough, the guy that was doing that, I've actually worked with him a lot now because he's a bit older than me. And remembering those moments, it's like, I want to do that when I grow up. I want to travel the world. I want to build tracks. I want to be in the machinery, and that's what I wanted to do. And yeah, funny enough, then it just one thing led on to another. And back in 2014, Jason Baker reached out to him. Actually, that was 2012, reached out to Jason to come to our facility in Newcastle and help us build tracks here. Yeah. And then me and him just got on so well. And at the start, he was a bit hesitant because my old man was like, oh, Ty can run the equipment. He's pretty good on it, all the rest of it. And Jay's like, yeah, heard it all before.
Yeah,
so
whatever, mate.
Jay's got him and 4 other guys down there working on our tracks and building our tracks for our facility. And then I'm like, right, Jay just flicked me off and goes, go over there and just fix that dam over there and
go dig a hole.
Yeah, go over there. And anyway, so I'm over there digging a hole and shaping this dam to where all the silt's got to run to when we operate the track and stuff. And Jay's looking like, he's like, you got that slicked up pretty good on the radio. And Jay's like, maybe this dude's pretty bad and he can actually operate. And so then he's like, just come over here and come and operate with us here for a bit. And so I went over there and started just slinging dirt with Jay and shaping things up. And he's like, this dude gets it. Yeah. This dude understands the equipment. He understands riding. And just having those 2 skills was such a hard thing for that industry that he's in of building tracks for the professionals to find that kind of just went together. And we just end up anyway building our facility here, and it just we just got along so well, and we're like best mates now, and just traveled pretty much all over the globe with him now. But he rung me probably about 2 months after he left here, after we finished the tracks here at my place, and he's like, hey, you want to go to Japan? And I was like, yeah, why? What are we going to Japan for? He goes, well, we need some help, and you kind of know what to do, so come and help us. And that was the first Red Bull X Fighters that I ever did, was going to Japan, and just snowballed from there. So
far out. So for a kid that grew up like just frothing motos to then going and building tracks for something like X Fighters, that must have been like a bit of a pinch yourself moment.
Yeah,
for you.
It was like, because at that point I was only 21. I was a fresh dad, just had a kid, just bought my first house back then, so was kind of just in that rut of just work, trying to get ahead. And then for that opportunity to just come out of nowhere is like, you really got to be careful what you wish for. And especially as a kid, because you're like, the stuff I wished for back then actually come true. And I'm like, and then when I'm in the moment and I'm doing those things overseas, I'm like, this is hectic. Like, this is crazy that I'm here and I'm at that top pinnacle I wanted to be when I was a kid. I wanted to be the best at building tracks. I wanted to do all these cool events that you always sit in the grandstand. You're like, how do you get that job? How do you do that? And it was pretty crazy to end up in that position.
No, good on you, man. And it's like, I think it's a mixture with a lot of things, right? It's obviously having the experience and the skills, but then also being Johnny on the spot, right? Like the cards have got to fall your way to have those opportunities, and then you just got to go and chase them, right?
Yeah, and it just so happened that when we decided to build our facility, we were like, well, we want the best, and at the point, the best privateer track builder was Jason Baker from Dream Track. So that's where we're like, right, well, let's send him an email, let's reach out to Jay and see if that's something that he wants to do and come here and build us a track. And sent him an email, didn't really get a response to begin with. Then it was 2 weeks later, he actually just called me and was like, hey, it's Jason Baker. And I was like, righto, we're getting pretty serious now. So, and then just having that opportunity for us to build the tracks here, and then just that friendship to snowball was just, it was pretty cool how it all happened. And
yeah, for sure. And I think there's definitely like, I mean, I don't know the first thing about building moto tracks, but I imagine it's quite a niche industry. Like, I don't imagine that there's a huge number of people doing it.
Yeah, very.
And, you know, for him to see you, as you said, someone that's got the background in riding bikes and the skill in earthworks and being able to combine the two, that's a niche within a niche, right?
Yep, absolutely. To find those two things that mash together, being riding and operating the earth movement equipment, is such a hard thing to find. And that's like, when he was here, he was like, maybe we could do something like this. Kid kind of knows what he's doing. And back then I was a kid, and he's just, we could mold this into something pretty cool, because we need the operators. We can't find anyone.
Yeah.
And now it's one of my best mates that lives in Sydney. He comes away with us now as well. And just some of the places we've been all over the world to do these incredible events with Red Bull.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely mind-blowing on some of the stuff that we've done. And when you're there and you're just looking back at what we've built, and you're just like, this doesn't make any sense. This is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, that's so cool. So is Red Bull X Fighter still going now?
No, so it finished up kind of pre-COVID.
Yeah.
It kind of just, a lot of things were changing in the world, and Red Bull was remodeling and stuff like that, what they were doing, and yeah, it kind of just washed out. And I think it's still a thing, but they're not actually running the events. Like I think they still have an Instagram and stuff like that for the event. Hopefully one day it picks back up again, but for right now, it's kind of, the X Fighter side's kind of stopped.
Yeah.
So, which is disappointing, but...
Oh man, I went to a couple of them and they were sick. Like just the pinnacle, right? And as I said, I've never been a rider, but I've always had an appreciation for it. Watching some of those events live, just off tap, right?
Yeah, it's insane. What some of the riders were doing back then, and that's when they were really progressing into 360s and all this sort of stuff that they were doing on the bikes, and it really, I think I come in at the right time when the tricks started escalating dramatically, and not only for the rider, the risk that they have, but also us as building the tracks, is that it was very important that we got stuff right, and that from a riding perspective we could go, yeah, no, you're just going to get bucked over the bars on that, or that's too steep, or this is too laid back, or that transfers too far with how much run up he's got, or all these different scenarios that would come into play in order to make sure that from our perspective the riders were safe, and because no one else on site could trust anyone but us, because we were building the track. And it's just, with all of us having that riding background, we kind of knew what was sketchy and what wasn't. So
yeah, and I guess that's the bit for, like, you know, a Joe Public like me who just goes there for the spectacle of it. Like, you don't sit there going, oh wow, the people who built this track really know what's up. You're like, oh, the dude on the motorbike is, you know, he's the one that's got to get it right. But there's so many other elements that go into that being, I don't want to say safe, but safer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very important that we get the ramp set right, we get the jump set right, we just, the track layout, but all this stuff is kind of designed months and months in advance towards the event actually happening. So they'll go to site, take some photos, take some measurements, and then either Jay or one of my other bosses, Dane, will go back and they'll kind of mark out where things have got to go and what will actually fit in the area that we're going to do it. So for instance, one job that we did was in South Africa, where we did it on the Parliament building right at the front of like Parliament House. We did this event, and so we had to, there was all these big pine trees and stuff, so we had to kind of, this area that we had to carve out, and brought all this dirt in, all this beautiful red South African dirt. It was absolutely awesome to work with, and that's like, it's probably weird for me to say, like, the dirt's beautiful.
No, I get what you mean. Like, so it's like your clay content and all of that
just
stuff, right?
All the different textures that are out there, and a lot of people that, like, either were in the media that were around us during those events or whatever, were like, why is this dude talking about how good the dirt is? Like, it's just dirt, like, bro. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, it's just that consistency, and if you're a motocross rider, you understand it, is like, oh, that dirt is just epic. That dirt is the best. And some of these places that we got to go to do these events in these different locations, some of the dirt was absolutely horrid and some of it was amazing.
Yeah, right.
But it's just kind of,
So is that from like a construction perspective? Like, if it's a certain kind of substrate, it doesn't pack down properly, or it doesn't have the right, like...
Yeah, or just just the consistency of the dirt or what they've actually found. So most times when they do a pre-site visit, they'll go around and try and find some stockpiles of dirt that's decent stuff, and then that way they'll schedule it out to say, okay, we're going to use this dirt. Like most of the stuff that's used in the Sydney Stadium is still the same dirt that's been used for 20 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just taken back out to, I think it's taken out to Western Sydney somewhere and just dumped again.
Yeah.
And then it's used for the monster trucks and the supercross, and it's got glitter and all sorts of shit through it from all the pyrotechnics and everything at the end of the events, and it just, continues to get recycled. But most of the time, like we did, Abu Dhabi was pretty hard because we got some pretty wild equipment over there, and that's another thing that like is the equipment that we get. It's kind of, sometimes it's great, and like a company like CAT will come on board and sponsor the event, so we'll have brand new fleet of equipment to use. Other times, like Abu Dhabi, we had an excavator where the bucket was just flopping around on the end of it, and it smelled like a goat had been living in the cab for 6 months. So it's just...
Which is so weird, because you think Abu Dhabi, they'd have like the best of everything, but it's priorities.
Yeah, right? It's kind of like mate on mate, like, oh, my mate's got a digger, and like, oh, we need a new one. Oh, no new ones here. We need to use his one. And it's kind of like just a bit of shifty stuff, but we had to process all the dirt in Abu Dhabi.
It's super sandy, right?
Yeah, with water trucks, and then we had to bring in clay and just sit there and mix until we got that good consistency to construct the whole track. So
have you got like, when you're doing the setup for something like that, is it like an engineer that's designing the track, or is it the earthworks guys just know, like, is it, Jay that's there designing like the angles of ramps and all that sort of stuff? Yeah,
so a lot of stuff like the Supercross stuff that we do, like we did Red Bull Straight Rhythm as well. Most of that stuff is all designed on either SketchUp or a 3D sort of scaled thing, so we can go through and change different features, and then we have measurements and all the rest of it. And like still, like up till probably the last 2 events of Straight Rhythm, we were actually still measuring, I think it was a quarter of a mile, but we were still measuring physically with tapes to each feature, and then we finally got the GPS in the last few years that we were doing it. And we could actually GPS it and GPS each like transition, jump, point, all the way along with star pickets, and then go through and build everything. But most of the modeling's already done on what we can fit, and then if we get to site and things like the scale wasn't quite right, or we got the wrong info in the beginning to scale the track or whatever, we'll just make tweaks and adjustments as we need to make it fit. So
that's wild.
Yeah, like we've done Melbourne Supercross a couple of times now, and we've had to kind of tweak different things to make it work, or we can't have too much dirt in one spot, and we can't have equipment in that spot because load bearing on the stadium. And there's a lot of engineering that goes into it, especially in stadiums.
Is that the Australian Open Supercross event? Is that one?
Yeah. So some years we've done it, and then there's another track builder that does it as well. But there is a few track builders in Australia that do that sort of work. So
it's so wild. It's like just this whole like little subculture that kind of exists, and if you're not in it or a spectator, you just wouldn't even know it exists, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's like it's the whole behind the scenes sort of situation, is like what actually goes involved in all this sort of stuff, and who does it, and can you just Google like track building for events? Like
I need a freestyle motocross track. Just Google it. So something like Kudos, and I don't know what it was called back then either because it's had about 50 names. What's the setup time like? So from when you get access to the facility, how long does it take to build one of those tracks?
Well, normally if the event, sometimes they throw a curveball and do a Friday night event. Most of the time it's a Saturday night event. Press stuff sometimes on the Friday. If we've got a couple of features built, they get the press into, hey, Supercross is on this weekend. But Thursday night is usually when we'll enter the stadium, and then we've got to have the track pretty much completed by Saturday morning. So we work non-stop.
Straight,
and like if we were just to go and build a Supercross track, like a full size, it'd probably take a week and a half if we're just doing kind of 8-10 hour days to do a full spec US spec track. So we've got to build that track in such a short window that it's just it's by the end of it, literally Saturday morning, we're asleep up in the grandstand, just passed out.
Cooked,
we're just absolutely cooked. And then we'll probably get, while the event's sort of happening on the Saturday, or they're doing all the preheats and stuff like that, we'll probably go and crash out for 3 hours, come back, watch the event Saturday night, and then as soon as the event's over, It's just tear everything down,
Really?
and get the trucks in, get the machinery in there, and just rip it all back out, because they pay like either per hour or per day for the hire of the facility. So,
Which I can't imagine is particularly cheap.
yeah, nah. So as soon as we're out, they'll be bringing in something for a concert, or old Taylor Swift's going to set up or something like that. Literally the next day, there was dirt bikes in it the day before, and now there's a concert in it the day after. So it's a constant machine. So you just got to get in and get it done.
And I guess the Taylor Swift concert, they're less fascinated with dirt than you guys. So you've got to make sure you do a good job of cleaning it up.
Exactly.
Right?
So it's a full stadium cleaning and all that sort of stuff. So
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So what sort of crew are you dealing with? Like how many people? Because I imagine it'd be quite hectic for those 2 days leading up to it.
Yeah, something like that arena. We're just flat out with truck and dogs running in there. Sometimes they'll start from like Thursday lunchtime. They'll start running dirt in and putting the floor down. And then usually the track guys will come in probably Thursday night. But it's absolute chaos. Like you've got a truck and dog with another truck and dog with another truck and dog just lined up out on the street, all full of dirt ready to come in. Boys laying boards down on the stadium floor and tipping dirt and all the rest of it. So it's absolute chaos. And the track guys is probably, maybe at some point we've had 6, 7, 8 of us just cracking it out. So a couple of guys on dozers, loaders, skid steers, finishing off as we're going through. A couple of guys just running around with tape measures, measuring things, putting features in where they got to go. And
mayhem.
Yeah, it's a massive machine, and like it's not like it gets done when it gets done. It's like there's an event and there's a time and it has to be done. So you don't get breaks. There's no breaks.
Yeah, and I suppose for any of those kind of events, the investment is like insane, right?
Yeah.
So you can't be the guys that are like, oh, nah, the boys are still pushing dirt around in there. It's like, nah. It's got to get done, right?
Yeah, that's 100%.
And if you're doing it inside a stadium, does that then limit the size of the machinery that you can use, or it doesn't matter?
Yeah, so something like Melbourne, we are limited like per square metre to a certain weight rating, depending on the acro props underneath this, because there's a car park underneath the one in the Marvel Stadium in Melbourne.
Yeah, so you can't be running.
Yeah, so we can only have certain equipment in certain areas, and then like we can't have a truck parked too close to a skid steer next to a pile of dirt. So everything kind of has to be like set out to where it's got to be, and you can't have sometimes they've got a guy running around to because we're just so focused on what we're doing that we don't want to be worried about sort of everything else that's kind of going on. We just want to focus on what we're got to do. So he's running around going, move that, put that here, move this.
You don't want to be worried about falling through the floor.
Yeah,
exactly. Building a jump that someone's going to do a double backflip on the next day. Yeah.
Exactly. So we've got to be really cautious on the engineering side of it too, to make sure that you don't stuff a multi-million-dollar stadium's floor and things like that.
Yeah, your insurance company wouldn't be super psyched on that one.
No, definitely not.
So you ended up doing that all over the world with X Fighters, because that was a global event, right?
Yeah, so we did. We've done some car stuff, X Fighters. We've done some sketchy stuff in Russia. That I'll get to that in a minute. That was pretty wild. Probably the only time I was kind of scared for my life. We've done some pretty cool stuff all over the world. We did Bryce Menzies long distance jump in his I think it was his Pro 4 or Pro 2 truck. In San Diego, so we jumped. I think it was 365 feet in his truck. So we built that jump for him as well. X Fighters and a bunch of other sort of niche sort of events and stuff like that. But yeah, Greece, South Africa, Japan, the US, New Zealand, Russia. Nearly everywhere.
That's amazing.
We've been. So
what an unbelievable experience for you though, and I suppose being a dirt bike frother since you were a grommet, and then being immersed in that world for a couple of years would have been a dream come true, right?
It was absolutely insane to especially doing it on someone else's dollar. Someone else is paying for everything for you to go and do it. Yeah. So it's pretty cool that you got these experiences, and it's unfortunate that a lot of times that we were there, all we did was work the whole time, but pretty cool that you got to go and visit all these places, and you didn't have to save up and buy a plane ticket and pay for the hotels and all the rest of it. But we still got to see some incredible things. But I think probably I'm trying to think of the best place I went, and probably the most iconic thing we ever did was Diosynos marble quarry in Greece. We actually built the X Fighters course in the bottom of in the quarry, so where they cut the marble slabs for your kitchen countertops and stuff like that. They shut the quarry down, and we brought in all the dirt and built the quarry, so you're jumping from steps up to the next level and then jumping over the other way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the final image of that event that night is absolutely awesome, and I'm planning to blow it up on a big picture for inside the house, because it's just all the lights up on the marble quarry and the reflections off the marble, and then all the track and the crowd, and they set up all the grandstands and everything. That was
mad.
Pretty cool.
And I guess, like, I'm just thinking about it, like, it's such a transient kind of nature of what you're building as well. Like, you're building this thing in 2 days, and then there's an event for a day, and then you bump it out in 2 days, and then it's kind of like may never happen again, right?
Yeah, that's it. And that's very much Red Bull. Like, they're very, this is a one-off, we have to do this, or no one else will ever do this.
Yeah.
And that's sort of Red Bull's mentality, and they're an absolutely amazing company to work for, is that let's go and build a track in a marble quarry, or let's go and build a track floating on different pontoons in Germany, or just all this cool things that no one else will ever do. Yeah. Red Bull always puts their hand up and says, yeah, let's see if we can do that.
Let's make that happen.
Yep.
And I guess that's why their media is what it is, right? Like,
it is, yeah.
Yeah, they're a beverage company, but they're also, like, arguably one of the best media companies in the world. And I guess I've always, as a marketer, I always look at them as, like, the pinnacle in terms of how do you get eyeballs on something. And it's because I think they do things that everyone else goes, it's too hard, or we'd never be able to do that. And they just go, nah, we're going to do that. And they make it happen.
Yeah, that's it. They don't like limitations. No. They don't like someone putting a road barrier in front of them. Yeah. And that's pretty awesome to like, especially confidence for us when we go to do a job for them. It's like, we know that they're going to do everything in their power to make this happen, and we've got to do everything in our power to make it happen too. And we will go as hard as what Red Bull will to make this event happen, because we want to see that cool final product as well. So it's kind of, I think, like, get a lot of respect from Red Bull in that aspect, is that, like, Red Bull know that we are going to go up and beyond, and we're not going to sleep, and we're going to, if it rains or hail, we're going to still push dirt or move this or do that to try and make that final thing succeed, because there's so much money that's poured into it already. And
insane, right?
Yeah, like, at the end of the day, Red Bull use, like, all this stuff for write-offs. Like, they sell so much energy drink that's either give it to the tax man or make events and cool stuff out of it. So,
and just at the same time make, like, the best content, right?
Yeah,
like the most phenomenal spectacles. And I mean, my head just spins when I start thinking about all the things Red Bull's done over the last 20 years. It's phenomenal, right?
It's absolutely awesome what they've done, and for any other company to chase them or follow their lead has been very difficult. Like, no one's, like, people are trying, but it's just that, I don't know, it's hard to kind of put your finger on what it is about Red Bull that is so appealing. There's
definitely, like, an X factor about what they do, right?
Yeah.
And so many times, like, over my career, I've been involved with Red Bull here and there, and, like, when Felix Baumgartner jumped out of space or whatever, and I remember, like, we were involved in that when I was at Sony, and I remember the initial call about, this is what we're planning, and I'm like, what? Like, who thought of that? Who's the maniac that's going to jump out of a spaceship and, like, what? Why? Like, but who cares why? Like, it's because it's cool, right?
Yeah.
And no one's ever going to do that again.
No, not a chance. And that's just a Red Bull mentality. Is like, how ridiculous can we do something that no one's going to follow?
And they're still pushing it, eh? Like,
still pushing
everything they do.
Yeah, now they're heavily in F1 now. Is like, I think one of their main focuses is heavily in F1. So,
well, just motorsport in general, right? Like, even in the supercars here, and it's no coincidence that whenever Red Bull decides to get involved in a sport, they're always at the top.
Like, they're always. Yeah, they've got to have that athlete, or they've got to have that, especially when they're a niche athlete. It's like they are the pinnacle, and even the competitors to them aren't going to get close to them. So Red Bull's got to, and I love how Red Bull awards an athlete. Like, they do let's go do this or go for a ride to this day, and then one of the other Red Bull athletes has his helmet or has his like race suit or whatever it is, and they'll keep it hidden from him, and then they'll just like pull it out and like give it to him, and he's just like, wow.
Oh,
like,
true, yeah.
like that's kind of how they do this is my announcement, like that you're now part of the Red Bull team, so that's pretty awesome.
And like, you know, from a marketing perspective, they just do it so well, right?
Yeah.
Like, I remember having a discussion with someone many years ago when I was at Sony, and we were doing a lot in the action sports space, like particularly with like base jumpers and that sort of stuff. And I was asking about getting branding on a helmet, and they're like, "Oh no, that's a Red Bull athlete. Red Bull owns the head." And I was like, "Of course they do." Like when you hear it, you go, "Oh well, of course."
Yeah.
But then you start to look, and it's like if they're a Red Bull athlete, they have a Red Bull helmet or a Red Bull hat, and that's it. And there's no other branding on it.
Yep.
With the exception of F1, but F1's its own little beast. But yeah, you know, just the little things like that Red Bull do that just it seems simple, but it all adds up to being such a powerful marketing machine, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to like get old. Like it's not like, it's just that brand that just will not age. Like it will not. Yeah, it's very. I don't know. I can't even describe the word on how you would describe Red Bull, like in one word. It's just.
Yeah, I'd just say the pinnacle. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and that's where everyone wants to be. Like, is the pinnacle of something, and it's wild to think as a kid, like being in that stadium back then to now doing what I've done with an amazing team like that we have that travel with us, and one of my other mates from Sydney who comes with us as well, and just some of the stuff that we've done, you just go like, it's crazy. Like, you got to pinch yourself. You absolutely do, because like, and never ever did I ever take it for granted, because I knew one day it would slow down and one day it would come to an end, because they would change the way they were doing things or change this and that. But yeah, it's pretty incredible.
And I think that's something else that Red Bull's always done really well, is that they know when to pull out of something. They don't keep flogging it and it gets old and then, you know, people lose interest. They do it for just the right amount of time that they still get the eyeballs, and then they pivot and go, nah, now we're going to go do something else that no one expected.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where Red Bull X Fighters kind of ended up. It was like at the pinnacle of all these riders doing all this crazy stuff, and it was like, how much further can this go? Like,
before everyone just starts dying.
Yeah, that's it, because there was so many accidents happening back then, and it was getting so risky that's when all the blow up landings and stuff started appearing and all the rest of it, just because of like, it's like, you really want to risk your life to do this jump and smack yourself on the dirt.
Well, a lot of guys have died, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, I remember just from when I was a kid watching like the original Crusties, and they're like out in the desert with like Deegan and all those boys, and then watching Nitro and X Fighters, and then, you know, like the first backflip, and then it's double backflips, and then it's front flips, and then it's like, and people are starting to get hurt regularly, and you know, a lot of guys died, and it's sort of, you go, where does it stop? Like, there is a limit, right?
There is a point where it's, but again, they keep pushing it. They keep pushing that limit to find, but it's just unfortunate when it all goes bad, finding those limits, you can't.
Yeah, no second chances.
You can't come back from that, and it's like, how far do you push it? And I think Red Bull kind of knew that the writing was on the wall with X Fighters back then, and maybe that's why it finished up again.
Liability.
Yeah, just it was, how far can these riders keep pushing this sport? And so, and
it is still progressing, right?
It is,
there's still new tricks being invented.
Yeah. It's definitely the freestyle motocross side of it. I don't think it's as big as what it was. It was huge at one point.
Yeah.
I think it has died a lot, but there's still guys pushing the boundaries on what's achievable. But to do, I think what's achievable on like a 75-foot ramp or a 90-foot ramp, and the tricks that they were doing over them, now it's like these massive ramps with these huge landers and 24 backflips or whatever they want to do. But yeah, I think the limitations of what can be done on a ramp to dirt is kind of maxed out.
Well, there's a physical limitation in terms of what the human body can endure, even if you do land it, right?
Yeah, just the repetitiveness of being just flogged into the ground.
Yeah,
like,
it's a young man's sport.
It's it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And like, you look at someone like Travis Pastrana, who's just absolutely destroyed his body completely.
Yeah.
And now he's just more so into the car sort of side of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's that natural progression from guys that are into bikes to get into cars and all the rest of it. But yeah. Age catches you quick.
Yeah, and you can never win that battle.
No, you're like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
And it's just, it's all those times of being an idiot and being stupid on a dirt bike that's caught up with me. So,
Mate, tell me about it. I was yesterday afternoon getting a remedial massage on my shoulder and neck because I slept funny the night before, and that never used to happen. But that's age, right? And I'm sure it's the result of some sort of carnage that I put my body through when I was younger, and it's like it starts to catch up on you, eh?
yeah, and you're just like, you'd do that stuff when you were younger, you'd hurt for a couple of days, and you'd be like, oh, sweet now.
Yeah.
But it's like, it just works its way back into your life, and
Yeah.
you feel like you've been hit by a truck the next day. But
The recovery takes longer, and then all of that stupidity from your youth starts to catch you, eh? And then that's when you really know you're getting old.
absolutely.
So you mentioned a couple of times about this facility that we're sitting in, not your shed, but the property. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, yep. So we built the facility back in 2014. So it's the Island Action Sports Complex. We're just north of Newcastle, and we've got multiple tracks here. I think we've got it's probably like 9 tracks or something now, and it's been a slow progression over the sort of the last decade building this place, and this is where it all started. Originally back then when we started building the tracks and stuff, and that's how I progressed into that industry. But yeah, so basically we're just a ride facility here where you can come and pay on the weekends and ride and camp and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was my old man's dream. It was his dream to build this place. He wanted to have a dirt bike park when he retired. Yeah. So that was his dream. So we did our best to make that come true, and it is what it is today, and it's very much holding a standard in Australia. And it's also it is difficult to manage. It is very, very difficult to manage, and that's why most parks in Australia end up closing after a while. Just insurances and just staff, and again, finding those operators that know what they're doing, and just finding that repetitiveness. People want to work on weekends and stuff like that, and then also trying to maintain the property that we're on here as well. It's just a full-time job. Like, we've got a massive crew of guys that work here every single day, and yeah, unfortunately, sometimes we do have to shut the facility because it just gets too much for all of us, and we start stressing out with everything else we've got going on. Whether it's the cattle that are here on the property as well, like managing 300-400 head of cattle, managing fences, and all those farm little jobs that you have to do. So, but the facility is definitely a good asset that we have here, and we are going to look to open it back up here soon. But it's just one of those things where you've just got to put other things ahead of that. So, but yeah, essentially we want to get more events here. We want to hold more events, whether it's the Motocross Nationals and things like that, and niche events, whether it's trail bike rallies, because I did all those as a kid, all the trail bike rallies up Bulladila, Wadigans, Sunny Corner.
So is that more like enduro?
Yeah. So we've got a couple of enduro tracks here that we've built as well, probably about 20 Ks worth.
So that's single trail stuff?
Yeah, single trail. Yeah, up here on the hills and stuff like that we've done as well. So holding things like that, and then just different ride events that we want to hold here and stuff like that. So we're just trying to get the property to a position where it can we can have a few guys managing the property, and then we can put our focus back onto the facility here. So it's just like anything in life, you got to balance it and all the rest of it. And then while we were trying to open the park and I was trying to do the tracks, I was then flying to places like Greece or Russia or wherever I ended up to do tracks over there, then coming back. So it was couldn't really open that weekend because I wasn't here and I couldn't do the track work. And so yeah, it's a full-time gig here trying to manage everything.
And I suppose, given that it's dirt, it constantly requires work, right?
Yeah,
like you have a big rain event or something and you've got work to do.
Yeah, well, it's like as a four-wheel driver, you go to a track after a bunch of rain, dirt bike track's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Dirt just goes south, it just goes down, and then you got to bring it all back and put it back on the track again. And so it's a constant management each week of prepping all the tracks, getting the tracks ready, running a dozer out there, skid steer, tractor, constant thing every week. So it's a full-time gig to run the motocross facility, that's for sure.
So it's closed at the moment?
Yeah, just because we had so much other projects on around the farm that we wanted to get complete, and while we're constantly on the facility every single day, 5 days a week, and then running on the weekends as well, you just don't get time for anything else. So we had to fix we want to build a big water storage dam here, so we have water for travelling irrigators, Then we have like for the cows as well, so we have water for them during summer times. And we want to build a big lake here as well. Our fences were demolished because we bought a national park and stuff here, so all our fences were just completely folded over.
Yep.
So we had to fix all that sort of stuff, and it's just, we're getting on top of it, but so we should hopefully be open soon. But.
Yeah, nice. And I mean, if there's one thing that I've learnt from, I've got quite a few mates that own properties of varying sizes, is that there's always something to do on a farm.
Yeah, it's never ending. And then you'll get someone that comes up, one of your mates comes up, why don't you mow the lawn, bro? if you knew what I did all week, the lawn's the last thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it can wait.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's too good. So it is a fully functional cattle property though?
Yeah, fully functional cattle property. So, and
Yeah,
that was the biggest thing, was getting it to that point of having different paddocks for different cows and managing them and pushing them from one paddock to another and actually being able to circle them around the farm.
Yep.
So that way it was actually functioning and we could actually get an income from not only the bike park, but the cattle as well. And they weren't just roaming everywhere and staring me at the front door when I walk out and just all those sorts of
watching
situations.
you in the shower.
Yeah.
So that's in itself, I guess, adds a layer of complexity, right? Having a motorbike facility and a cattle property in one, you've got to manage that from both perspectives, right?
Yeah, and that's why we've got probably 6 or 7 guys here full time on the property helping manage things, whether it's mechanic, boilermaker, other operators, guys that are running the tractors and stuff for us, truck drivers, things like that. So then a couple of labourers who are just like mowing, whippersnipping, just all that sort of stuff, just managing everything around here. So it's a full-time gig here, and then my old man's, he's out on job sites doing his stuff as well, bringing in more income. So it's
Yeah, right. So, and I suppose like the motocross facility or the motorbike facility, that's a weekend thing only, right?
Yeah, so we just open Saturday, Sundays.
Yeah, so you've really got 2 days of income, but it's a full-time gig to keep it maintained and open.
Yeah, that's it. And then you've got the full-time other aspects of your life to try and maintain as well, which is tough, but it's definitely a love thing.
Yeah.
And like me growing up with motocross my whole life, you don't open a motorbike park to make money, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely your love for it, and that you love it, and then you love seeing kids and how much enjoyment they get, and remembering when I was growing up with my brother, how much excitement we'd have when we used to go out to Louis at Mudgee, and we'd go and ride out there all the time, and how much fun we had as kids, and to see that on kids' faces when they come here, and I get off over there just building jumps and stuff like that, and making things cool for the kids that they can whip off 85s and 125s, and I'm like that feature that I built would be sick on an 85, and then all the kids are down there on the 85 just cutting laps, and so I do enjoy it. It's definitely progressed into, I'd have to say, it's a love-hate thing, and it does become that, and it's like, I've got to go and do this again, and then I've built this anxiety for rain, like, just because it's like, I'll go down there and I'll prep all week, and then I'll be watching the radar on a Friday night, and I'm just like, yeah, sick.
That's going to undo all my hard work.
It's like you building something and someone just coming in with a hammer and just going poof.
Yeah, fully.
Like
and I guess that's such a weird thing, because you've got like the cattle farming side where you need water, and then you've got the dirt bike side where you're like, please don't rain. So you've got to kind of like manage those two desires.
Yeah, it's a constantly, and then it's like when the tracks get too dry, it's like I need a little bit of water, but I don't want too much water. And then some days we really do get good conditions where it's absolutely awesome, and the tracks we'll get a little bit of rain during the week for prep, and that way we've got some moisture in the ground. And then on a Friday night we might get that afternoon storm that'll just roll through and just water everything nicely, and
push all the dust down.
Yeah, because some nights, man, like I was out there till 10, 11 p.m. on a water truck on a Friday night, and then again I'd prep Saturday afternoon on the dozer, prep the track again Saturday night, and then go out and on the water cart and water everything, and be out there till nearly 11 p.m. and it was a mission.
So it's a passion project, but as I've chatted about with a few people lately, it's always a dangerous game merging your passion and your income, right?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Yeah, because it's like you have so much fun doing it. And I grew up my whole life on earth moving equipment, doing tracks and stuff, and loved every minute of it. But then when it's just that constant grind, and I think the worst thing is when you put so much effort into something and then someone just wants to throw shit at you. And that's like the hardest thing, is that we put so much effort into the tracks and into everything, and you've busted all week to get it done, and then someone goes, tracks are a bit shit today.
Oh, yeah. You're like, good on your champion, in your expert opinion.
Yeah, you're like, there's the gate.
Yeah.
It's just, that's probably the biggest thing that kind of, like, I don't care about it now, but it, like when we first opened, those kind of things got to you, and you're just like, but then you look at where those people come from when they say things like that, and it's like, one, they don't have a track. They haven't tried to achieve building their own track. And so I understand like where they come from as just a consumer to what they've paid for to ride, but they don't come from my position. It's like, wow, this guy was out here till midnight last night watering for me.
You don't understand.
Yeah.
I read something just last night, and I'm going to get it wrong, but it was, the essence of it was, never take criticism from someone that you wouldn't take advice from.
Yep.
And I went, there's something in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, even with this, like, you know, putting ourselves out there, making content on the internet, and there's always people who are critical, and then you think, where's this coming from? Like, are you making better content, or have you got like heaps of experience in this particular field, or are you just some dude with an opinion?
Yeah.
And if it's the second part, well then, good on you, man. You have your opinion, but unless you're willing to help and encourage and build other people up, then maybe your opinion should be best kept to yourself.
That's it. And I just think, social media is like you see someone do something so cool, and then social media, go and read the comments, you're like,
yeah, what?
Like,
let's all attack this person for doing something cool.
Yeah, it's like I see some of the comments on like Elon will do something like absolutely awesome, like the rocket stuff, and then someone's like, he's wasting so much money. And I'm like, the dude just put the biggest rocket in the world in space, and you're giving him shit. Like, it's like absolutely crazy. But
that's social media in a nutshell,
it
right?
is.
It's given every peanut around the world.
Yeah.
That was a good pun there. It was nutshell and peanut in the same sentence. But you know, it's given every person in the world a voice and a platform to say whatever they want publicly, and there's always going to be bad with good, right?
That is, and it's like, would half of those people actually say it to your face? Probably not.
Probably not. But like, I appreciate it, man. Like, if it's something like this, you've put so much time and money and effort into, and then for someone to go, oh, it's a bit shit. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, go do something better then.
Yeah, and you do develop a massive backbone to it, and you do get to the point where you do not care. And I'm well past that point now. I've been past that point for a decade now, and it's just, do not care what anyone thinks. Do not care of anyone's opinion. And if you constantly consume yourself in that aspect of what people think of you, you'll just constantly stay there, and you just... Yeah,
well then, if you're always scared of failure or, you know, criticism, then you'll never push and achieve great things, right?
That's it. And with me traveling so much, and my parents, like, they were all for it. They were like, go for it. Like, and me as a father now, thinking of what they let me do, like, I was 21 when I left and all the rest of it, but it's still scary to think your kid's going out in the world and just,
oh, hell yeah,
you're like, see ya. And I think one of the scariest points what was in Russia was that this wasn't a Red Bull job, this was a different job for a different guy, and going to the other side of the world, and I was like, wow, this is like, because I went over there with my brother, and I was like, this is just taking forever on these plane flights. Like, it was a drag to get to Russia. We got there, and this guy was running this event. He wanted to be Red Bull, basically. Yeah. He was trying to be that image, and we did this event, and it got scary quick, because we got military visas to leave Australia, like Russian military visas, because we were going to be operating on military plots of land, basically. And this guy was trying to do like a X Games / Red Bull sort of thing, but Red Bull wasn't involved in this. So this was all a private dude wanting to do this. And
some Russian oligarch.
Yeah. He thought he had a lot of money till it come to event work, and then he was like, I don't have much money at all. So,
it got real quick.
So we, me and my brother got there, and my other mate, and we're just kind of hanging out, and we're like, righto, well, what's the go? Where's the equipment? Where's the dirt? Where's the track? So these Russian dudes took us down there, and we still had the crew from the US hadn't come over yet. My boss and that from the US hadn't been over there yet, and he's like, righto, how is it? What's going on? And I'm like, well, we're sleeping above a tyre place in this shonky hotel that's like, you go to some motels in Australia and you're like, oh, this is a bit sketchy, but this was like next level sketchy. So one, we were above a tyre change place.
Yep, nice.
It stunk like all hell. I couldn't even fit in the shower. It was that small. I had my neck cocked like this, and the shower head's here. The sheets in my bed, like I had one sheet, but someone had already slept in the bed apparently. So that was the start of it. And then we got to the place where we were doing the event, and it was this big, massive military base with all this random equipment everywhere, all this old Russian
Cold War stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
it was awesome.
Yeah.
But then me and my brother were up in the thrusters of jets and stuff, and it was a whole construction site, and all these machinery, all this equipment's all covered in tarps and whatnot, and we're just up there getting into the cockpits and stuff, and like no one's doing anything. Like we're just like,
do whatever you want.
Yeah, no one's saying anything to us. So we've got some incredible photos, and we're in these tanks and stuff, and then we started posting pictures to Instagram and Facebook, and next minute we get the word that this nuclear device that these people aren't meant to have, we posted about it. And now on an international level, this has been found out, and this was kind of the last few days that we were there. But so we started, anyway, so that stuff was kind of behind the scenes of what was happening. We didn't know what was happening at the time, but they had a motocross track there on the facility that they obviously had for all the soldiers to ride on.
Yeah.
So our job was to carve all that into a course like we do for Red Bull, into a freestyle motocross course. So we got some equipment, and it was pretty bad. We had to go and borrow equipment from the construction site and bring it over. And then guys would come back from the construction site and take our equipment as soon as we'd get out of it and run it back to their construction site again. So it was, and then we were sitting in the grandstand just waiting for equipment to show up. So this goes on for about 5 days before our boss from the US comes over, and then he just realizes that the whole thing's turned into crap. And then we started getting really heavy rain and stuff, and then we had some dudes there building some BMX jumps on one side of this course as well, because they had a BMX feature that they were going to do. There was dudes there building skate parks around some of this military equipment. They were going to have a skating event there around some of these. It was really, really wild. And then I think it was probably the fourth or third last day we were there before the event was supposed to happen. We ended up getting rained out, and then the boys were there they were trying to keep going ahead with the event, but they were trying to shape this BMX jump, and then we were there on the equipment as well, and we started hearing gunshots, and we were like, where is the gunshots coming from? And then they were shooting blanks at us, like the Russian soldiers were shooting blanks at us. And we're just like, this was cool for a minute, but this ain't cool anymore.
Yeah.
And then the dude that was running the event, he started running out of money fast. The general of the site, the Russian general of the site, was getting really angry of what was going on, and that things that were supposed to be paid for weren't paid for. And then old mate tries to offload his Range Rover, like who was doing the event, to try and get some more money to keep everyone happy. Then our flights started getting cancelled on us because the people he booked all of our flights to go to Russia on, he didn't pay the agency. They started cancelling all our stuff to.
You're like, I'm going to end up in some Russian prison.
And I was just like, this is wild. We need to get out of here now, like before this escalates any further. And like I was there with my brother and my best mate, and we started like freaking out that this could get really serious and we could get stuck here, because they were like, you just need to put the track back to how it was. And I was like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Like, we want to leave.
Yeah, like this is getting sketchy. We're being shot at. Like flights I'm on here on a military visa. Like
I've created an international incident on social media, posting photos of a nuclear warhead.
Yeah, that was like after we just left, we learnt that like some of the guys that were running the event, that hey, like the US found out about those pictures that were posted, and they weren't supposed to have all that equipment. It was supposed to all be destroyed decades ago, but they still had, obviously, they were building a big war museum is what they were building there. And they weren't supposed to have some stuff, is the story we got told. And yeah, apparently it's kind of on a large scale. Shit hit the fan, and
Did the event go ahead?
no, it didn't. So it all got cancelled. But the issue is that there was ramps that were brought in there from Europe and stuff, from a guy that had like freestyle ramps. So all his ramps were there, the bikes were there, and we didn't know how to get rid of all this stuff because he didn't have any money left to transport all this stuff out.
Yeah.
So all the ramps were left on the course. Like the bikes were still left there in their crates.
Yeah, wow.
And we just, at the end of the day, we don't even know what happened to everything at the end of the day.
You just left.
We just had to get out of there because it was getting very sketchy, and yeah, so we just see you later. And luckily we got through customs, and
That's pretty loose, man.
Yeah.
What an experience, though.
Oh, it was.
It's like we were talking about before we started filming, like all the good stuff that happens, you remember that, but like the stories come from the bad stuff,
That's
right?
it, absolutely, yeah. It's always, no one remembers the good stuff. It's always the real bad incidents that happen to you and the sketchy stuff. And
at the time, it's terrifying, but then you can look back on it now and it's like, well, that was an experience.
yeah, and it's like, I don't know where I stand now. Like, we don't know where we stand if we want to go back to Russia at all, or, yeah, we don't really know what ended up happening with everything. And, like, will I cross the border into Russia and
You might be on a watch list.
get arrested?
Yeah,
like...
They'll be like, that's the guy that posted the photos on Facebook. So you mentioned before, like, the transition from 2 wheels to 4 wheels, and obviously there's, like, the physical side of that. And I'm like, you know, I think I saw Deegan's racing, like, off-road racing and stuff, and, you know, obviously Travis. But for you, what was the sort of transition from, like, 2 wheels into 4 wheels? Obviously, bikes are still a massive part of your life, but how I came across you was on a 4-wheel drive trip 5 years ago, maybe?
Yeah.
When we went up to the Pilliga?
Yep.
So what was your sort of path from 2 wheels into that 4-wheel drive space and then building insane F-trucks and all the stuff that you do now?
So I think it was probably becoming a dad.
Yeah.
That was probably the reason why, because I was like, I was the main source of income for our household back then. I was still riding, but not to the extent and the risks that I was before, where I was doing a lot of dumb stuff on a dirt bike. So ended up buying, was contracted. I was working in the mines and stuff up in the Hunter Valley, and ended up buying myself a PX1 Ranger, and then ended up just building that up and just, put 35s on it, lift kit, all the rest of it. And I was like, I'm going to start doing 4-wheel driving and stuff like that. So I'd always been into cars since like I was like 18. But then kind of progressed more into the 4-wheel drive side. So like I used to have a Ford Explorer bagged on 24-inch rims. And it was pretty cool. Like I put that in Auto Salon and won some trophies in Auto Salon back in the day. And
wow.
Yeah, it kind of just progressed into like having cars like that, then into 4-wheel driving because it was just more practical. We could go up the beach and things like that. But yeah, the PX1 Ranger was probably where I started getting into 4-wheel driving. And just from the fact that I didn't want to risk my income on a dirt bike as much, but I still wanted to do something that was dirt involved and getting muddy and having fun. So back then was like when all the Facebook groups started up, like Facebook groups of like Ranger and stuff like that. So joined one of them and then met some awesome guys who I still know today that had PX1 Rangers or the Mazda BT50s back then, and we'd all go out Killy Loop and stuff like that and do trips out there. And
sick.
It was just good fun. We'd do Saturday night drives and go do Killy Loop on a Saturday night. And yeah, we got into some wild situations where we were completely in the deepest mud I've ever experienced. And
at Killy?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's some holes out there that'll eat your car.
Yeah, and it was so much fun. And I do miss it. I do miss like having that car. But the PX1, I ended up like chopping it in half, and I stretched it and put a space cab tub on it, and then put a canopy on it and stuff like that. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. So that's probably where it kind of all started, was building that initially, yeah.
And it's a slippery slope once you start modifying 4-wheel drives, isn't it?
Yeah, it got out of hand quick.
It does. It happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've also been making content yourself for a while now.
Yeah, so I'd always been making little films and stuff like that, like motocross wise. So when my brother was riding, I'd film him riding and stuff, and then I'd put when kind of iMovie first ever came out, I started making little edits of him riding and stuff like that with some cool music and just memorable things that I've still got today of him riding, and us as mates and all that riding and things like that. So I started editing back then. This is probably, does it have to be 2000 and 2009,
Yeah,
something
right,
like
okay.
that.
Long time ago.
Yeah, so, and then I kind of drifted away from that stuff a bit and just was family focused, just going to work, all that sort of stuff. And then I guess the YouTube stuff sort of started up probably 2019.
Yeah, okay.
I just started dabbling in it a little bit, just filming what I was doing, and I ended up selling the Ranger that I had and ended up buying an F250. I was actually in America at the time when I bought the F truck, and again, all the Krusty movies, they're big black F trucks.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, I want to have one of them one day. I want a big black F truck, and that was a goal that I set myself. And I was in America at a Red Bull job, and I was scrolling late one night, and I was like, oh, I found one, black one. And that was 2017 when I sold my PX and ended up buying the F truck. Mm-hmm. And I bought it from a guy in Queensland. He was sketchy as. He was wild. So, yeah, the F truck had a little bit of damage to the door when I first bought it. So he repaired that for me.
A couple of bullet holes or something.
Oh, I had a big dent. Yeah, big dent in one of the doors. But like, it was just weird when I picked it up. Flew back home and flew up to Brizzy, picked it up, and like he was just like, it was one of those shops where you know he's shutting, like he's closing down, and so I ended up buying the truck, brought it home, and yeah, it's kind of just progressed onto there where I wanted that image of a big black F truck, 6-inch lift, big Fox shocks, 37s, just clean black, and that's how it kind of stayed for a while, and then it kind of got out of hand there, and it just went into trays and canopies and all the rest of it.
And then it became Sandy Torp for a while, which
Yeah.
is when I came across you, and now it's green.
Yeah, it was right before I met you is when I wrapped at Sandy Torp, and the only reason I did it was to get under the 79 boys' skin.
Mate, I have a car with not a 79 number plate, so I'm right there with you in stirring up the 79 series owners. So the F truck, when you bought it, it was already right-hand drive swapped?
Yeah, it was all done. And like when I bought it, I stole that thing. Like I paid 110 grand for it with like 35,000 Ks.
And what's a new one worth now? Just under 300?
Yeah, 260, 280. Like for if you want a top spec,
money,
like it's just ridiculous. And mine's a Lariat. But yeah, it was a really good price when I bought it.
Yeah.
So.
And then you've overcapitalised on it, like we all do.
Yeah, I was going to buy a new truck, but I just couldn't justify it with the new prices.
Yeah.
Like, from when I bought that and the history that I have with that truck now and everything that I've done in it, everywhere I've been around the country, and I thought, do I sell that and then spend 260, 280 on a new one, and then try to either get sponsors on board to help me build it or just pour all the money into it myself and build it? I was like, I'm just going to rebuild this thing back up to what it is. And funny enough, the paint job that an old mate originally did on the damage to the door is what led me to repainting it now, because when I pulled the wrap, the clear coat, so it was like I said, he was sketchy, and he probably just did it with a pressure pack. And
oh mate, it happens. Like my 80 has been wrapped a couple of times, and the first wrap that went on it, when it came off, it took all the clear coat off.
Yeah.
Like no matter what anyone says, like it's gonna pull the clear off.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I wouldn't wrap a car, but I'd be very selective on what I was going to wrap again.
It's a commitment.
It is.
And it's also knowing that you've got to redo it every few years, because I'm at that point now with my 80 where it's been, nearly 4 years since I wrapped it, and it's starting to get a bit old and a bit ratty, and I just don't know if I've got them. I don't know if I've got it in me to do it again, but...
If it's constantly a thing that you can justify doing it all the time, then go for it. If it's either a business car or something like that to where you can just keep evolving it, then fair enough. But when I was repainting the F truck, it was like, I want something different. I want something that no one's done yet. And that's, I've ended up painting it Shelter Green, the new F-150 Raptor car. So I love it. Yeah. It's turned out so good.
So you've been, you were saying before we started filming, you've been building that yourself and a bit of work gone into it? Yeah,
so again, we're trying to manage everyday life and the facility here and the farm and everything, just building that on the side for content as well. Yeah. Because like I don't tend to film too many of my trip videos. I like to enjoy that time for myself.
Love that.
But I like to get on YouTube and learn things myself on how to do something. So there'd be sometimes where I couldn't find what I was looking for.
Yes.
So I was like, how about I film, and that's kind of where my content started, was filming how to do things, like this is how you bleed your brakes, this is how you adjust your steering, but most of it was F-truck focused because that's what I had. So, and there wasn't, back when I started, there was no one with American trucks in Australia.
Yeah, it's not like it is now.
No, it's absolutely exploded in the last few years, but back then I was like the only one doing American truck content on YouTube. So that's kind of where that started, and I just was making videos based on things I wanted to know myself, and that way someone could obviously get the info that they wanted because I'd already done all the research for them, and then hopefully that would continue to grow the channel because people would want to follow to learn things. So, and then it just snowballed from there, and then it was just all about, especially with I got a Raptor as well, building the Raptor up and what products were available for it and those sorts of things.
Oh man, like every time I need to do something on my car that I haven't done before, it's like straight to YouTube, right?
Yep.
Because everyone's gone through the same process, made mistakes, and it's like, well, if I can watch a video and avoid making the mistake this bloke's about to make, then I'm going to save myself time and money, right?
Absolutely. That's just like, you'd either go and pay for a shop to do it yourself, or pay for a shop to do it, or just do it yourself. And you can just save so much money doing it and then learn a skill at the same time, where I'd rather buy the tooling to do it myself than pay someone else to do it with the tooling. So then I had the tooling and then I had the knowledge on how to do it.
Yes.
And I've learnt so much from the four-wheel drive industry on how to do things myself, and pulling the F-truck down to completely just the cab and the frame myself, and then rebuilding it all back up over the last 12 months. It's been a mission.
Yeah.
And especially like we were talking earlier, trying to find parts for the thing. Lucky that my girlfriend's in America. She's been going to the parts store for me, and just down the road, and not getting those inflated prices that we get here in Australia. It's like you have all the importers here in Australia, but it's like,
markup.
Yeah, like, that's going to be 200% more than in America. So she would be able to get it discounted, get those parts over to me, and could save me a lot of money on rebuilding it. But I've only just built this shed now, and it would have been great to have built the truck in this shed that whole time, but I've been laying out there under the carport, building it in the rocks. And
Character building.
Well, there was some character.
It's funny you say that. Like, I've always been into cars, and I've got a limited degree of mechanical understanding, and I haven't had the motivation to do it, but I'm really trying to push myself at the moment to do more.
Yep.
And it is really satisfying. And I think the main thing for me is I do a lot of solo travel with just my wife, and now with our young daughter. And I feel like it's a responsibility thing that I should know how to fix stuff. Because if we're out in the middle of nowhere and something goes wrong, I don't want to be like, I'll just call the mechanic. It's like, no, you need to know how to figure it out yourself.
That's it.
So I'm really trying to sort of push myself. But you're right, like, you learn so much by doing it, right?
And it's, if you're in those situations and you don't know how to fix something, like, I feel like a failure. Like, if I can't fix something myself, it's like, like, I don't want to go take the risk of going out to those places like Simpson Desert or wherever, and knowing that if something goes wrong with this truck, I can't, like, unless it's like catastrophic, like,
Rod out the side of the block.
or the engine's not even in the car anymore. It's like I should be able to fix this and get it back on the road. And I think over my life I've become very hyper independent. Like, I don't like asking for help at all. And I don't know why I got to that point in my life, but I just like to just do it myself, whether it's mechanical, electrical, just anything on the car. I should be able to do it myself. And pulling that thing apart, man, like, some of the shops that have worked on that car over the years that I thought I was getting a good thing done, and I've like discovered just absolute spaghetti of wiring and just terrible. I paid top tradie prices to get this stuff installed correctly, and it wasn't done, and I'm doing a tenfold better job than what they've ever done.
Yeah.
It's sad.
There's definitely something in that, man. And don't get me wrong, there are some phenomenal shops out there. I've had some top quality work done on my car, but I've had the same thing, like with my 80, I've had it for a long time now, and, lots of people have worked on it over the years, and every now and then you pull something apart and go, what? Yeah. And I think one of the motivating factors for me to do more on my own car is no one has the same level of perfectionism that I will have with my own vehicle. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think it'd be the same for you, right? Like, at least now you know that everything's been done right. Or if it's been done bodgy, it's because you decided to do it bodgy. So you can't blame anybody else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't. Yeah, but I think it's like, again, trying to be. I wanted that truck better than factory.
Yeah.
And like that's a hard point to get to. But I wanted everything zip tied. I'm very OCD when it comes to zip ties. I hate it when there's two lots of wires and then doubled up zip ties in different directions or something like that. Everything
All cut at a nice angle.
Yeah, it just annoys you so much. So everything had to be nice, neat, functional. If it didn't like do what I wanted to do, it had to be changed or modified, or I wanted everything to be right. And yeah, you're right in what you say, is that definitely you want it to be the best, and what a shop thinks is the best, or what is practical and to trade spec, versus I just wanted to route that differently or put a little bit extra on that wire to bring it around so it looked nice and neat instead of coming up on an angle. Or
a healthy dose of OCD.
Yeah, and I've got it bad. So
Yeah. Nah, mate, I fully appreciate it. So the channel, I mean, you got quite a few followers on your channel. You got about 30,000 on your YouTube, I think.
Yeah, I think it's up about there. Yeah.
So what's the sort of future look like for you? Is it do you ever plan on shooting trip content, or do you just want to keep the trip and the travel for you, and then you'll just keep doing shed content and that sort of stuff? What's your plan?
I think the shed content will get more as I get this shed sort of up and running. There's still a fair bit of stuff to do here in the shed and get it kind of set out to what I want it to be. But for the most part with the content, I have filmed a few of my trip videos, and I probably still will if they're like pinnacle videos, like when I went to the Simpson Desert with my daughter. It was just me and her and a few of my mates. I wanted those memories on film, and I wanted to make that, and I put it into a big long feature film that's on my channel of the start to the finish of that trip, and just those memories of her only being, I think she was like 9 or 10 when we did that, and just to have those memories is kind of why I filmed the trip videos, to look back on that and go, it's cool to have your old home videos that me and you probably have when we were kids that were just done with a camcorder, but to have a full production edited video of you and your kids that's on YouTube for life that you can go back and watch whenever, I think that's pretty special. So that's kind of why I do some of the trip content, but then I kind of keep certain trips to myself, to where I'll still do Instagram content and stuff like that, but for the main part, I just want to be there, be present with my family, and enjoy it.
The main purpose is not to create content. The main purpose is to experience it with your family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I fully appreciate that, man. And it's something that, you know, you just said being present is something I get reprimanded all the time about at home, because I'm always doing stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, my wife said to me just this week that the thing that she loves the most about the travel that we do is that that's the most quality time we spend together, because I'm not doing GME stuff or thinking about podcasts or on social media or fixing my car or doing whatever. Like, I'm actually just present with my family, and we're in a cool spot. And I think I've said it on this show so many times, and I'll keep saying it, like, creating content for social media is fantastic, and I love it. And I love consuming it, and I love making it. But then also just putting the camera down and just enjoying it for what it is something I think we all need to remind ourselves of. Yeah. Don't go somewhere just to film it. Like, go there because it's cool and because you're going to have a mad experience, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of YouTubers that feel that they've gone and done something and they're like, I don't even remember that. I don't remember being there. Like, I wasn't, you're constantly looking through a camera at everything, and you don't really remember doing the trip
you're not
in
there,
depth.
right?
Yeah,
you're just not physically, like, you're not mentally there. You're mentally focused on the camera, not the experience itself.
Yeah, that's it. You're in that, in your head, you're putting a timeline together of the video, and you're constantly thinking about the next shot, or I need this, or I need that, or that. You're not actually there enjoying it, and it's a slippery slope on both. It's like, if you don't put the effort in, you won't get the results. Like on YouTube, like YouTube is not my source of income. It's not. It's just a fun thing that I like to do, and I do enjoy, like, from when I used to film my brother riding dirt bikes. It's just something that I enjoyed doing. I like doing edit. I like being creative and things like that. So
I fully get it. That's what this is, right? Like, I'm not doing this because I'm trying to make millions of dollars. I'm doing it because I like having interesting conversations with cool people, and I just so happen to film it and share it with people. And for me, it's a, you know, as you said, it's like a record. It's like, I've had so many conversations with people, and I'm like, man, it'd be cool if we could have shared that conversation. So that's what this is all about. But I think having boundaries for yourself and being able to go, nah, this is for me. I'm going to be selfish and do a trip just for myself and my family is really important.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like you can get a bunch of different photos from that content, like, and things where you're still present, but you're still taking photos of you and your family, or you might have a GoPro going down. What's the river on Fraser Island?
Oh, Eli Creek.
Eli Creek. You might, like I did like that with my family, like going down there with just the GoPro, just floating down there, and it's just a memory that I've got now on my phone is us just floating down there, but wasn't necessarily just there constantly churning away with the camera and trying to film something. Is that all those memories that you do sometimes in the moment you take them for granted, and you look back and you're like, damn, I wish I could get that time back, or I wish I could have been present when that happened. And I think a lot of people need to remember that. But again, it's some people take YouTube very seriously, and that is their beast, and they need to keep progressing it. I'm not that serious. I might post this week, 3 weeks will go by, and it's just the mundane things of everything that fits in between being a dad and being present. It's just life in general. Yeah, it's just, and then if I get a video out, I get a video out. If I don't, I don't. So
very good, mate. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, Ty. It's been super interesting, man. So if people want to find you online, what's your socials? How do they find you?
So the YouTube's just Ty Fenwick. It's just my name, just Ty Fenwick, and then Instagram is Lucky9 Design, and then I do have F-Tech, which is kind of the brand that attaches to the channel, because everything's sort of Ford based with the Raptor and the F truck and things like that. So yeah, and then I've got a website, ftech.com.au. So
nice one. Well, thanks again, man. Really
no worries.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we will see all of you next time on the Outer Side.